got it?
Yep, we've got it.
We got it. So I'm sure you're all familiar with the term still point, and in your own way have experienced it. I kind of think of it can be as much as just a pause between the breaths, the still point. And just as Jennifer led us through, it's accessible even when we're connecting to other parts of ourselves. It's always there. There's a possibility of coming in. And I thought, yeah, spirit was so beautiful this morning. The first thing that popped on my email this morning was from an upcoming course, and the title was "Our Nervous System is a Portal into the World of Spirit." And I thought, perfect. That's really the essence of this talk. And I think we know more and more with the neurosciences of studies in that when we drop into, my language would be the parasympathetic, when we're able to come into stillness, we can access spirit and creativity and our universal connection with greater ease. And for me, some of the deepest moments of why I kind of chose to hone in on energy work and craniosacral therapy, which is, we're going to give you a little taste of, hopefully today, is because for me, that is where I have really felt some profound and deep experiences within myself and in witnessing others in this place of stillness, this deep peace, this vastness that can happen even amongst the stillness. And so for me, it was kind of looking also at, though my practice is quite different than maybe many of yours in the sense of I am touching and working with the body. My background is as a physical therapist, but I'm closer to an osteopath in the way that I work. But what I realized is that in every session, there is, I'm just going to flip to this one. In every session, there is some amount of craniosacral therapy or energy work, even if I'm doing other modalities. And in every session, the Satir model is present. And what I've come to realize is, rather than it just being Satir model being woven in processes and in ways of experiencing it, I really can honestly say it's become more of a container for my life and my own exploration and for my private practice and my work with others. And so it got me thinking, and it has been getting me thinking a lot as we've been sharing and writing together in the Body Energy group about what is so similar in the teachings of Satir to some of the teachings I've had from other traditions and the craniosacral philosophy in particular, and the energetic philosophy. So just kind of thought that, I love this quote, that we get together on the basis of similarities, we grow on the basis of our differences. So I thought I would just, not spend too long on this, but just to go through, I love this picture of Virginia Satir, to have her present. I think I was absolutely ecstatic to discover in my early trainings of the Satir model in 2000, I think was my first one, level 1 and level 2 in 2001, that the spirit was in the forefront. I could feel it. It was present. So that I love that John addressed this at John Bauman at the AGM this year about, is this a spiritual model? Is this a process model? Is this a growth model? I think from the beginning, I really felt it as a spiritual model, always. It's been, to me, some of the first videos I saw of Virginia Satir. And again, I was like, like meets like. I was like, she's doing energy work. She's using the body. She's like navigating herself in the room with her position of her body, with her actual touch. And so for me, that was, of course, I'm like, woo. And then, the differences might be that I didn't use a lot of dialogue. Explore maybe as much as I do now with all the different levels of the 5 essential elements. And that, to me, I realized too, was always there to some extent in my practice of being change focused and goal orientated. And Of course, some people might think that body work in general is experiential just by nature, but not necessarily, right? Someone might, I don't know if you've had a massage, or I've been with people who have that idea that if I'm on the massage table, I can do my grocery list at the same time. So they may not be in the experience or bringing more awareness to what's happening in their body or in their whole being. And of course, systemic for me, the body is systemic by nature. And again, specifically with craniosacral and energy work, it's very much relational. So almost never am I working on one part of the body. It's actually the support. So if there's someone being challenged by pain or limitation, I'm always highlighting where in the physical body and in their energy is their flow, or inviting them to explore that, to find, can we be with both at the same time and find relationship in that? And I'd say that wouldn't be different in any style of therapy, right? To right away draw in the resources. And the positively directional, I feel like that's probably honed in. I've probably, over the years of doing the Satir training, really been much more conscious of that in my sessions. And so that's been a real gift to really look at, rather than it just being an experiential and someone's having an opening or a release on an either emotional level or a physical level, but then to really be helping with the facilitation and the guide towards how will that be different as they return home? How will it be anchored, maybe something from the past to the present to the future? So that movement and being creative with that within sessions has been really a real positive thing for me, and I believe for my clients. And on that list, of course, I think use of self, for me, very close to my heart. And I feel in some ways is the essence of the Satir model, that again, experiencing it in courses and in trainings, and how we bring who we are. This is a work in progress iceberg that a friend created. And I was wanting the star in the center to come out even brighter. So we might be working with that. But I love that when we think of use of self and who we are, and when we come into connection with others in a loving way and coming from our deepest self, our spirit, and we're meeting another iceberg, so to speak, another person in their wholeness, that is where transformation and magic happens in my mind. And that, I know this is not new to anybody. These topics have been talked about in a lot of these community meetings, but it felt important to just bring how passionate I am to that process, that when we are working to clear some of our unfinished business, to, like in the reading you gave, Linda, about clearing some of the darkness of the container and bringing the light forward. So always seeing the spark of the divine or spark of the life force in each person, no matter what is presenting. And for me, the medicals in particular feel, even though that comes into my work with others, I feel like it keeps me honed in to my own journey, and reminding myself to be a choice maker, reminding myself not just to raise my self-esteem, but to love, 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 love all the parts. So that, again, I don't need to be teaching the Satir model, but I just wanted to highlight that. And making contact, again, beautiful, Linda, that came right into your reading, and the making contact at that spirit level. And I think for something I had listened to was, I think there were 6 or 7 CDs of Virginia Satir workshop she gave on making contact. And maybe I was thinking, that's something I'm pretty good at. I can make people comfortable. I know how to orient my energy to help people feel safe and settled and in touch, creating that sacred space. But in those CDs, I took away so many gems of Virginia Satir's particular exercises and nuances that she was doing with therapists. And so again, similar, and the growth in like exploring even deeper at any time. And I just want to take a pause for a minute. If you can just I don't know if you have a pen or paper or just in your own being, take a minute to check in with yourself about how do you might right away think of making contact with other, but how do you make contact with yourself? What is your way? There can be many ways, but even a simple gesture, maybe there's a way that you place a hand on your heart or a part of your body that anchors you. Maybe it's through your intention. Maybe one hand is just pointing towards the earth to connect. But just doing what you do and seeing what feels familiar to connect to that deeper sense of self. And as we come to the rest of the talk, kind of holding that with you, what that experience is in your body or in your energy. We will be coming back to maybe some of that with the discussion groups. So I mentioned if you did want to jot anything down. So the contact of, again, maybe what's different is pretty quickly after checking in and having some sense of where we're going in a session, what's different for me is I'm in physical touch pretty quickly in my sessions. And so, but again, even though someone might come in expecting to be touched, it's really important always to check in what feels right, what feels the right pace, the right way that they want to be touched. So always engaging with the choice of each person. And so to come into a little bit about the energy systems and the craniosacral rhythms, we're going to talk a little bit. It's not going to be a crash course in craniosacral therapy. It is something that I do teach workshops on, and I find it absolutely fascinating that sometimes the people that actually pick up the rhythm and the connection to the craniosacral system are maybe don't have any physiology or anatomy background. And it's partly because they're coming with kind of an openness, mostly the prerequisite is that heart openness, and that the experiential learning can be help you take yourself into that system. So mindfulness practices and having a bit of energetic capacity to sense energetically is a real strong suit for being able to learn and practice the craniosacral world. So it's not always as far a reach as some people might think, that they have to, take a program of 4 or 5 years, but even just in the ability to listen to what is the quality of the nervous system. So I keep this it's again, coming back to that, what in this diagram is from Barbara Brennan's book called Light Emerging. And it's one interpretation of the energy field of the fact that our core star is shining out always. It's always there to connect to, and that it reaches to the edges of our sacred space, our field. And so this idea of whenever I'm in touch, and even when I'm first listening, just taking in what I call the whole field of awareness. So the whole relational field is a term that we would use in the craniosacral system. So it's not just energy, it's actually picking up the rhythms both in the center and in the core of the body, and as it almost sort of ripples out into different parts of the energy field. So this concept, again, of working with the whole person, always, again, I know is a familiar satir teaching. And just as a note, I find it interesting that in the palpation of the craniosacral rhythm, and we'll get to a little bit about what that is, just to know that the listening stations are very similar to most of the energetic modalities that I've actually done training in. So with healing touch or Reiki or therapeutic touch, there's often the hand placements actually encompass the physical body in the same way that when we're listening to the craniosacral therapy rhythm. So all the major diaphragms, so our diaphragm is in the middle of our body. And even if you put your hands there right now, to be a hand on under your rib cage and on maybe the back where the ribs meet the spine, and then to think 3D through your own body, so that it's can be a very settling experience just to hug yourself this way. And when I'm offering, that's let's put my hands there, what I call sort of the sandwich holds, is again, very much something I saw Virginia Satir do on videos, that sort of holding from the back and from the front and listening through. And maybe there's a hand that's actively receiving and listening, and a hand that's actually sending a message in. I just wanted to point that out, that the handholds are often very 3D and listening through the whole being. And the invitation, as I'm exploring with people, so right away I'm asking them what's happening, these open process questions that we want, I think are getting highlighted more and more, of including all the senses of the body and the intuition, the sixth sense of what they're noticing right away, even if I'm just starting at their feet and listening to the rhythm and helping their nervous system settle. And so that would be number one goal for the craniosacral therapy from my perspective, is how quickly and how deeply someone can drop in to a calm state, into a sense of presence. So this allowing time, and sometimes, it takes a while for, it's like turning the hourglass over and the sand is sifting through. They need to bring that awareness down into the groundedness, into the earth connection. And like Jennifer shared, also connecting to the cosmos, connecting to their spirit and their sacred space. And so this, again, very familiar to everybody, I'm sure, but this again I've been really, probably in about the last even 10 years, shifting even my body work practice, like I said, and the craniosacral philosophy that I learned from was almost always connecting to what's working well, almost always sinking into helping even their brain or their nervous system start to highlight not what's painful, not what's wrong, but what's right. How much of your being and body and your whole self can you appreciate in this moment? Can you bring acceptance? Can you, what are the resources that you can name? And so while I'm working with them energetically and physically, bringing that exploration in, so they're almost developing I don't want to say pattern, but it's like setting some of that neurocircuitry that we're not just, it's not just the loop, the skip in the record of, again, I'll just use pain as an example. That pain's been there now maybe for 6 months. It is true that will be the first thing that's recognized. It's almost like the brain is looking for that after a time. So then how do we help them light up another part of their brain or access another circuit? So all of that, again, probably pretty familiar, but how then once they are able to connect inside and to that resource, often asking that, what are they, what is that body part yearning for? What is that, what part of them wants to speak and be expressed that may not have had airtime for a while? And sometimes when you say, can you drop into your essence? What is, how does that present to you? And sometimes they think, I don't know what you mean. And it's like, sometimes that's a guided kind of meditation as well. I meant to say that earlier. That's always what I start with. And so again, Linda's emphasis on Virginia Satir's, commitment to bringing that to the forefront. But sometimes I even walk them through that, just to a younger time in their childhood where they may have felt, kind of free and connected to their body, maybe to spirit. Maybe it was a place they felt extremely safe. And so we're anchoring in that and then seeing if we can bring that into the present time. And what are the qualities of their nervous system and in their body that are expressing at that time? So yeah, again, another beautiful quote by Virginia Satir. I believe the greatest gift I can conceive of having from anyone is to be seen by them, heard by them, and to be understood and touched by them. And so how are we touching? How are we hearing? How are we seeing? And again, bringing all of our senses to the experience of being with another. And I think that's true, so true in all of our relationships, to be, whether that's with four-leggeds or two-leggeds or feathered ones, and that earth connection. How do we see and be seen, hear and be heard, touched and understood? So here's your crash course on some anatomy. And we're not gonna, if you don't remember a thing about this, that my hope is that we'll have a chance to experience a bit of it. I'm gonna check the time. So the bones of the cranium is like the helmet, the spine, and the sacrum, craniosacral. So if I had a body here, that is, the rhythm is mostly felt through that part of our physical body. And the rhythm is, so we talk about the still point and the dance and the rhythm. So there's a very particular way that the body is moving. The craniosacral rhythm has a particular expression that we're looking for, but it might be unique to each individual, what that feels like. The spinal dura is what holds the spinal cord in place. The membranes hold the brain in place. So it's an actual tissue that has rhythm and is palpable. The beautiful cerebral spinal fluid is amazing. It's reproduced in every 6 to 8 hours. Some books say 6, some say 8, but we have fresh new fluid that is washing our brain, washing our nervous system, washing our spinal cord and all the nerves. And that is produced and organically happening in our brain. And that has a beautiful rhythm that is like a tide. There's a filling phase and an emptying phase. And these are all happening simultaneously. And then the brain and the spinal cord themselves have rhythmical contractions and are moving. So when we're completely still, there's dance and motion always. And we can tap into that. And I just want to say, it's like very similar to the breath. Some people that I've worked on who are, one of my mentors was a Buddhist practitioner for years and years. When I work on him, I still have worked on him lately, it is like he has the slowest breath rate I've ever known, and his craniosacral rhythm is almost exactly the same as his breath rate. So there's a way it can harmonize and connect. And so again, back to the breath can help the nervous system settle. So again, these are just some ways for you to land. So often having the visual can help you land in your own physical body. So even as you take in this imagery, I'm again not expecting you to read back to me all the parts, but the beautiful thing is the handhold, a lot of the handholds are very nurturing and very settling. So just imagine somebody holding your head with love and care and with the lightest of touch, and letting your head rest into like a cloud or a pillow, and being able to experience that in a way that lets you drop in. And this picture with this is actually the third ventricle, which is where a lot of the cerebral spinal fluid is produced. Some traditions would say that is actually sort of the seat of the soul, or where there is a deep kind of ignition to the connection to spirit. So even by being in that part of our anatomy, in connection, being curious and letting, that some of these structures light up, we're automatically connecting to a deeper sense of self. And this would be just an example of on the spine and the flows that are felt. And again, I feel it's very much like a life force energy that comes up and down the spine, and that we can, once we tap into that, we can even feel it through whether we're moving or not, or even by rocking. You may even just in this moment start to feel, if you want to just let your body move slightly, or rocking the pelvis in any way automatically gets you connecting to this part of your anatomy. So if you imagine lying on a table and somebody cradling you, this is what I call, it's like rocking the baby. Excuse me. And very soothing, you know, to have your whole nervous system be gently touched, but most importantly, to let it express and let it point to where it needs the attention and the awareness and more consciousness. And as we mentioned before, the still point, there's the rocking and the rhythm. And then sometimes what can happen spontaneously, especially if there's been a release or there's been an opening, the body and the being goes into this still point, and it's almost like it needs to look around and integrate what's happened. And that's often a time I'm going through the iceberg. I'm saying, what's happening now? I can do that while there's motion as well, but it's like paying attention, because it's a very potent time for sometimes information to be coming in, and it presents very physically. There's often a deep pulse, or there's heat. And so even when you're in deep meditation, you may be more curious about what part of your physiology and body might be connecting when you're in that deeper state. And it's, even though we talk about stillness, it can be full of potency. It's active, and there's movement within the stillness. So all the senses, again, whether there's imagery, color, smells, all arising and being present to that. So I'm excited. I think lots of you have seen the new iceberg, and the excitement for me is how body sensations are now their own section on the iceberg, and how we have body sensations and experiences of body and energy at all levels of the iceberg, and to be really curious about that always. And again, I didn't list a whole bunch of the open process questions, but what's great is there's the new booklet is happening, and there's been a lot of sharing about new ways and more creative ways to bring that in. So as you're exploring with somebody, how does that come in through their body and their nervous system, and what's happening now, what's happening in the present. So I think I'm going to let you go into a short experience. I think I'm probably over time almost. No? How are we doing? Nope. Great. So maybe I'll go back to just to have this up here. Don't have to use the imagery at all, but it's going to be a bit similar to, you know, a guided meditation, but with you traveling with your miner's lamp inside and really letting your cranial sacral system, your nervous system light up in your awareness. So it's almost like an internal anatomy lesson. And I shouldn't say lesson, experience, because it's really all about what's happening for you. And even if nothing much is arising, just, you know, paying attention to this present moment. And if you do have, again, pen and paper handy after we come out of this, if you want to just immediately drop into a bit of reflection and writing down what you have been feeling. So just having a moment, again, back to the breath. Maybe just sinking, letting yourself sink closer to the earth if that feels right. And as you're breathing in, just inviting in what you might like to fill up with, what you might want to drink in or draw in to your physical body, to every cell, to every part of your being. So what are you wishing for in this moment, or what parts of your body are asking for love and attention? Just landing there for a minute to honor what's arising. And if it feels right, just allow your body to gently rock, maybe back and forth. Just on your seat, just feeling your sit bones on your seat. And it can be tiny, tiny motion, or it can be quite large. Just feel what feels right for you. As you rock through the pelvis, just notice the rest of your spine in response, and maybe even your head, your cranium. Where is there ease of motion? Where is there maybe some holding? Just being with both. And so feeling the bones of the pelvis, the sacrum comes from the word sacred. So just dropping into its expression, letting it light up. And there's even fluid within the bones. They're not as dense and immobile as we think they are. There's life force in our bones and all our tissues. Coming up through the spine, just like you're playing connect the dots through this beautiful vertebrae that holds us upright, not uptight. Coming up to the cranium, beautiful bones that protect our brain and fluids. It's like a helmet. And just appreciating the spine and the cranium, the sacrum, appreciating the role of housing our nervous system. Dropping into possibly feeling the tissue that surrounds the brain. It's almost like a swim cap. Just seeing what the quality is. Does your swim cap feel like it's on too tight? Can you create some ease behind your eyes, at the base of the skull? Create some ease in the spinal cord, the dura that holds the spinal cord, just traveling back down the spine. That feels right. And just noticing, is there stillness? Is there motion? What wants to present? Maybe noticing crystal clear fluids that circulate through the brain, from the center of the brain out to beautiful horns in the brain, right and left, the ventricles. We often like to be noticed deep inside the cranium, like you've got a pointed light looking inside. And almost like a falling star, let that light drop down the spinal cord, all the way down back to the sacrum, including the feeling of strength in your legs or flow in your legs and your arms. Now maybe being aware of your whole torso, your diaphragm, your chest, your throat. I love that. I think it was Trisha that did a meditation online that said, your body works best from a place of rest. Just take a little rest inside. This was something Virginia Satir spoke about. Now even go right into your brain, just traveling again, like you're looking around, being curious. What parts want to show themselves or light up? Traveling again through the spinal cord, this time inside the spinal cord. Almost like you're opening from the inside, lighting up, softening, letting all the nerve roots float a little more freely, like pond fronds. feeling like you're in water, if that feels right. And then coming back to the connection to the bones, to the container. And then taking a few deep cleansing breaths to kind of come back to the whole of you and to the group. Just when you feel ready to gently open your eyes and take a look around. Maybe around in your room, what you sense in the space around you. Maybe there's something you want to anchor to in your vision or in your hearing. Just take a couple minutes to reflect on that, just within yourself, or writing it down. As we'll be moving into our triad discussion groups to share some of what that experience was like. And if that feels, if you're ready, here would be some of the questions I've posed for you to, if you feel like you want something to hone in on for your discussion, you can take a photo or just take those in. It might just be that you want to share in general about that, what you've heard, what you've experienced.